Hey, well, welcome to my new podcast called the Afterburn Podcast. My name is Joe Alvarado. On this podcast, I'm going to invite all of my indoor cycling instructor friends. We're going to share stories. We're going to share behind the scenes, how we put our classes together, what drives us, how we got started, what motivates us, and more importantly, all the stories that we have collected over the years of people who have come up to us and said, "You've changed my life. You've done something in me that I didn't think I can do. You've encouraged me to push harder than I ever thought I can push. And because of you, I'm in a better place." So many conversations to be had, so many stories to share. I hope you enjoy the Afterburn podcast. My name is Joe Alvarado. Hey, well, welcome to the Afterburn podcast. My name is Joe Alvarado. This is a podcast that I've recently added to my channel. You're not on a bike right now. You're watching or listening to me. And this is a different format. This is a podcast where you're going to get to know me. You're going to get to know some of my friends who also teach indoor cycling live and in person. Well, that's the same, live and in person, or online rather. And more importantly, not only are you going to get to know our minds and our brains and everything that is behind what we do, but you're going to hear some really cool stories about what we've experienced as instructors. And our hope and my hope is that you're inspired through my guests and you learn a little bit more about us. And you hear some stories that we have been privileged to know about how we've contributed in some small way to helping somebody's life change, because that's what we do this for. And so today, I'm very honored to have Kelly Favret on my channel. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. For those of my listeners who don't know you, I'm going to talk just a little bit, but then I want you to share a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
But I met you online through Tyler, Time to Train Fitness. You're an indoor cycling instructor, and we share the same passion for indoor cycling. And I couldn't think of anyone else that I would want early on in this podcast journey that I have a heart for than you to have as a guest. So would you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Kelly?
Well, first, the privilege is mine. I was telling you before, I feel so honored that I was chosen to be a part of. I know you've got a big lineup coming, so I'm so thankful to you for having me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, my name is Kelly Favret, as Joe said, and I am an certified cycle instructor. I teach online through YouTube as well as in person at my local YMCA. I've been doing this for, I don't even want to tell you how many years, for many years, since back when they called it spinning, or was the main term, was spinning.
Sure.
And I just have fallen in love with it. It was my first format I ever taught as a group fitness instructor, and it will always be my first love. Like I just love spinning. And it's funny because when I first started teaching, my husband never thought it would last, that long. And he's like, "I can't believe you're still doing this." And I'm like, "Well, I just love it." So it really is a passion of mine. And I'm glad to see that you noticed it, that it comes through in what I do. So
it absolutely comes through. And I love, like, one of the things that I love to watch other instructors is their introduction, their passion. Like you could learn a lot about somebody's experience, somebody's passion, somebody's love. And I believe like the first 60 seconds of a class, you just kind of know, like
it's like the first impression.
Yeah. Like, you know how to connect with your audience, you know how to get us prepared for what we're about to do. You say all the things that we need to know as far as what our body should be feeling, what the tension should be like. And all of that speaks volumes as to your experience, your passion, your love. And so, it's evident that you've been doing it for a while. And much like myself, you still teach in person and online. So we get this kind of dual audience, right? And it's a ton of fun. I'm curious, when you say you've been doing it a long time, and again, to your point earlier, it was called spinning, right? And spinning really is, I believe, is it Johnny G's brand? I think something
Yes,
like
it's the
that.
brand name.
Yeah. So
So
if
it used
you've
to be
ever,
Johnny G, and then it turned to Mad Dog. So
yes,
it's now
yes.
Mad Dog. Yes.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen a bike that says spinner on it or spinning, that's actually a brand, but it just became known as spinning, right? Although
Right.
the technical term, that's a brand. The technical term would be an indoor cycling bike or an indoor
Exactly.
cycling class. But it's all the same, right? We
Yeah.
spinning, cycling, whatnot. In fact, if you did a search on Google, you would have to put spinning in order to find more results if versus
True.
putting in both
True.
cycling. So, but anyway, tell me a little bit more about your journey. Like, when did you fall in love with indoor cycling? How did that process look for you? And when did you decide to be like, I love this and I want to be an instructor too?
It's funny you asked that because I had never taken a spin class before I took the certification, or cycling class, excuse me. See, I'm still calling it spin. Um, so it's excuse me, I'm sorry. I I was actually we lived in Tennessee at the time, and I was going to all of the group fitness classes,
Okay.
step, yoga, all everything that was cardio, strength, whatever was going on at the time. And one of the instructors came up to me and she's like, we're going to be holding a spinning certification here. Do you want to be an instructor? And at first I thought, no, like why would I do that?
They just asked you.
And
You just asked.
yeah, she just asked. It was like random because she saw me at class all the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, I don't know. I have to think about it. And so I came home. My husband's like, why not? You'll get paid to work out. Just try it. I'm like, I've never done it before. And you used to hear all these horror stories about how hard it was, and I don't know. So I went and took the certification. It was actually through Schwinn,
Okay.
and it was a 2-day certification, and we had, I think, one or two practice rides the first day and one or two rides the second day. And Joe, I could not walk. If you are everyone's been a first time one, but you remember that feeling after your first class where you just can't walk. Like
Yeah.
everything hurts, your legs from sitting on the saddle, your
Yes.
sit bones work, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right. Right.
It hurt. And I thought, what did I get myself into? I couldn't believe I did this. But you know what? I loved it. And I would get together with how many of our instructors were got certified at the same time, and we would do these little practices before the big launch of the new cycling program at the Parks and Rec Center.
Yeah.
And we'd all get turns, teaching, and then help each other and give critique and feedback. And I don't know, I fell in love with it. I don't really know why. I just loved it. I loved that it was low impact.
Yeah.
I loved the music, the camaraderie of the class. It was just great. I just fell in love with it. And it's been that way ever since.
Love it. There's so much to unpack there, because not only are you being super genuine in that it is uncomfortable, right? The first time you ride,
Yes.
Anywhere from being, your legs being wobbly to your butt not feeling so great, right, on that little seat. And
Yes.
and so you're
You
absolutely
remember
right.
how it hurt, and you'd like sit and you're like, I just want to stand. Like, you
Yeah.
didn't want to sit. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, a lot of times when somebody takes a class in person for the first time, at over at Lifetime where I train, I'll tell them, hey, if you, and I know it's their first time, I'll say, if
Yeah.
I know it's your first time, if you want to get off the bike during class and just stand for a couple of seconds, I have no problem with that. I get it,
Yep.
and for some people they do, and some people they just kind of get that it might be a little uncomfortable and they'll push through. But what would you say it takes? Maybe a few weeks, maybe 4?
My rule of thumb, well, first of all, I do the same thing, and I always tell them, I always warn them, because I'm like,
Okay.
I don't want you to go home and say that instructor did not tell me that it was going to hurt this bad.
Yeah.
So I always give them a fair warning. And then my rule of thumb is 4 times. You have to come 4 times,
I like
like
that.
once a week for 4 weeks, not once a month for 4 months.
Right.
And then
Otherwise it kind of starts all over, right?
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
pretty much after that, you kind of get used to it. And then I always say you could always use the gel seats or the gel, the bike shorts, but really you just kind of get used to it.
It prolongs maybe the inevitable, because it might
Yes.
help for an extra 5 minutes and then they feel it
Yes.
anyway, right? So,
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
I'm totally going to adopt the 4 rule. What I like about
Okay.
that is you're challenging them to come back at least 4 times,
Yes.
right? Because I've always just said, "Hey, just it takes this or takes that," and I've never given anybody a specific. So I'm already learning, Kelly.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. That's what
I'm
I
already
say.
learning.
I say
Yeah,
give it, you have to give it 4 chances, and it has to be like once a week for 4 weeks, not, once a month for 4 months. So
sure, sure.
that's my
So
rule. That's my
you're
rule.
invited
Okay.
to get a certification, right?
Yep.
And was there any instructor specifically that you could remember that that inspired you? Because it sounds like you were going already. You were just like going for it. Like, was it every instructor or was there a specific one? And what about that instructor like m- kept you coming back?
It's been so long that I can't really remember. I would just say it was because I was a regular and they
Yeah,
noticed me and they
sure.
noticed that I had a passion for fitness and I was always there and I
But was
enjoyed it.
there a
And I
certain instructor that you looked at and you're like, I love cycling because of that person? Like they're really doing it
No,
for me.
I can't say that. I know that sounds terrible, but I can't say that because I had never taken a class prior to teaching it.
Right, right.
So I kind of went into it blind and just learned it
Gotcha.
and kind of fell in love with it. And it was like OJT, on the job training.
Yeah, yeah.
I learned as I went.
Yes.
And throughout the years, I've taken other people's classes and you learn what you maybe take a little from here and take a little from there, or you say, I'm never doing that. So it was just more kind of just from experience more than for me, because of how I got into it. It was more by experience versus having somebody that I saw that I wanted to be like, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah,
Does that
no,
make
and it's
sense?
quite
Okay.
different because I'm willing to bet that probably 99% of people were inspired by somebody, and your story is a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely unique, and I love it. I love that it was something that you were kind of thrown into, and then boom, I love this, and I
Yep.
think for some people it isn't always a person, but it's like everything put together. In other words, when you go into a cycling class, it's the environment, it's the community, it's the
Yep.
music, it's the coach, it's the bike. Like there's so many things that come together that make you love it. It's a lot of there's a lot of magnetic pull, if you will,
Yes,
when you
absolutely.
go into it.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I
Well,
love
and
that.
it was also a jumping point for me because it spiraled my interest in fitness. So I started, by taking classes, then I started teaching, and then from there, I got my group fitness certification so I could teach other formats. I liked step a lot. I know it's like so old school, but but I liked
Steph
it.
is still
Step.
thriving at our club. Let me tell
Is
you.
it really?
Yeah, it survived. We've never taken it off
That's
the
awesome.
schedule for like the 9 or 10 years I've been at that location. Like
That's
it's
great. That's
yeah.
great.
Of course, it
And I
takes
like
somebody
old school
special,
step.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does,
yeah.
it does.
No,
Um, and then from there, I ended up getting my, personal training certification. I actually went back to school and got my master's degree in exercise science,
love it.
and then, from there, so I just fell in love with the way the body moves, how it works, what it's made to do, what we can do with it, how we can push it, how we can challenge it, and yeah, that's just so it was kind of like it was like the beginning for me when I look at it. Just by taking that one little step, it led me to where I am. So,
So when somebody takes a Kelly
okay.
Favret class, they are
Uh-huh.
getting somebody who has a master's in exercise science. So that explains a lot though, because when I hear you coach, your description of what's happening, I feel like is so much more profound than anything I say. I'm just like, feels like
Oh,
a 3 or 4 or whatever. Like, I just kind of whatever. But that makes sense though. That makes sense why you why I can really follow what you're saying when you teach a class. So that's awesome. That's
well,
awesome.
thank you.
I
You're
love
too
that.
kind.
Yeah, no, it is. It's truly something amazing. Uh, so what for you,
Okay.
and we'll get into some stories here in a minute, but what is it? What do you want to happen for somebody that's brand new that comes into your class? Like, what is a typical cycling class with Kelly? uh, feel like, look like? What is the experience that you want them to have, that you hope?
So when I try to think of new people, I think first of all, I want them to feel welcomed. So if I'm going to go with an in-person class versus an online class.
Okay.
So if I have someone come into my class for the first time, I always try to greet them, or I'll say, have you taken cycle before? Because you're new to me. Like sometimes people come in and they're like, I've been doing this for 20 years, another people. So I'll ask, you're new to me. Have you ever, taken a cycle class before? And, if they say this, they're going to say no. And then I'm like, oh, you're going to love it. I try to really pump it up and whatnot. I always make sure that their bike is fit right, because that can make or break a ride for a newbie.
Yes.
The seat's too low, handlebars too high, whatever. If you're not set up right, it could cause, we talked about the pain earlier, it can cause even more pain. So I try to make sure they get that set up right. Yeah. And then of course, go through the just little description of what we're going to do. Always warn them that they can take it at their own level. So I'm like, if I say geared up and you think, Kelly, there is no way I'm gearing up, then don't do it. Like, it's fine, And same thing, if I say come out of the saddle and you think there is no way I'm doing that, great. Just stay seated. You'll still get a good workout. You can tailor it to what you need. And then as you keep coming, you're going to notice yourself getting stronger and have to do more to get that same effect you're going to feel today.
Yes.
And then, we just have the class. I do a lot of form checks in the class, which I think always helps new riders. And then I always at the end like to give them a round of applause, because I always say, everyone in here, we have a first-time rider and they made it through the class.
Love it.
Let's give them a round of applause, because we all remember, I still remember that, that first time getting off that bike and how you just feel, there's so many different emotions. You're elated that you made it, but you're like, how did I do that? I can never do it again. So I like to try to leave them with a good, cheer. You can come back, you can do it, and then give them the 4 rule and say, see you next week.
Yes. I love that. I love that you had mentioned, we remind everybody of the form check, a lot.
Yes.
I have this little rule that I try to teach by, and specifically talking about in person. And it does relate to online as well, but in person, I do 2 things. I say what I see. Okay. And then I communicate how I feel. So those 2 things. In other words, if I see something that might not look proper, whether that be form or whether that be, something that somebody's going just too hard and it's not that time yet, I'll communicate that. Guys, remember, this should only feel like a 4. This should feel pretty good, 4 out of 10. Don't overdo it here. So you start communicating what you see, right? And then if I'm getting tired or if I'm getting winded, then I'm going to say that too, because if I am, chances are they are.
They are.
And so how that looks in person is, again, if I see it, I'm going to say it. If I feel it, I'm going to say it too. Online, online, I could only say how I feel, because I can't see you. I can't see, but I'm going to say how you feel.
So there is a difference between online and in person,
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
So no, and that's kind of a rule that I go by. Now, I'm curious, because there are different approaches to this, and every instructor has, I think, a different approach. I'll use that word. Okay. You had mentioned, and I think you're really good at saying, hey, this is where we're going today. If it's not for you, no big deal. You're still going to get a good workout. And I appreciate that. I think the new person appreciates that. Somebody who potentially has limitations appreciates that. But let me ask you this. Is there ever a time where it's that fine line between, I'm just giving them permission to kind of be lazy, I really want to push them though, because I do have an agenda, I do have a goal for this class, and riding the line between, if this isn't for you, don't do it, and I really want you to try this, so do it. Like, how do you navigate that balance?
So my big thing, one of my big things I probably say it all the time, because it's one of my little things I like to say, is that I'm here to push you. I'm here to guide you. and I'm here to challenge you, but it's up to you to make that happen.
Okay.
I can't like gear it up for you. I can't make you go faster other than with my words, but I physically can't do anything. It is up to you. So you have to think about, what do you want out of this workout?
Yes.
So in an in-person class, if I see something like that, I might say, let's, take, what do I see now? I've like completely lost my train of thought. I got to pretend like I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Got to put on my spinning voice. Just take a quick inventory. Like,
Yeah.
are you where you need to be?
Mhm.
Can you go a little faster? Can you, gear up a little bit more? Can you just push, give me that little extra effort? Also letting them know, maybe we only have 2 more intervals in this class and we're done. Maybe they can give me a little bit more at that time than
Yes.
they think. You can push yourself. You have to challenge yourself. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to push you. I'm here to challenge you. But ultimately, you're in control. Like, you need to help do this too. Like, I can do all I can on my end. You got to give me some back in order to get that good workout.
Now, you're obviously speaking from a lot of experience, and I love that approach, because you're basically saying, hey, I'm here to push you, and I will, but with the gentle permission on the backside that if it's not for you, that's okay.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they will get a workout, regardless. Right. They're going to get a workout. How long did it take for you to really feel like, okay, I'm credible, or I'm pretty good at this? Like, was it 2 months? Was it 6 months? Was it 2 years? Was it 5 years? Like, at what point did you say, I feel like I'm a legit teacher? Like, where are you at on that?
I don't know. I think that there's just always room for improvement. I feel like I'm always changing something, getting better. New information comes out to make your class better, make you a better instructor. I don't know. Like, sometimes I'm like, am I really legit?
Yeah. We still ask ourselves that sometimes, right?
Yeah. I think we still ask ourselves. I just think, definitely experience. If you're a new instructor listening, keep going, keep challenging yourself, and keep moving forward, because you get better. You just get better.
Yeah.
When I think back to some of my first classes, I kind of cringe. Like, I did that, and just, there's always growth. There's always room for improvement. So I hope I'm there. I hope people think that, but I know that I can always get better. So.
Well, I appreciate your heart behind that. And I know, I would share that same sentiment, that, as long as, I've been teaching too, it still seems like, all right, what can I learn? How can I get better?
Right.
How can I keep people's attention longer, the participants, the people that are taking this class with me? How can I bring them on this journey? Kind of like all of the above, right?
Right.
And so I love that. And I would agree. I would echo what you're saying. If you're an instructor now, an aspiring instructor, I feel like anybody can get, not anybody, but most people can get a certification.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to become great, it takes a lot of stage time, if you will, a lot of cycling time, a lot of practice, right? A lot of rehearsal. And we haven't even touched, what music is all about when it comes to what we do.
There's so much to talk about.
There's so much, but let's talk about music just for a moment.
Sure.
And not necessarily, I think we've talked a lot about, the difference between mainstream and an epidemic, music library, things that are less known, if you will. So let's not talk about that, but let's just talk about music in general. Like, what is music in your definition or your perspective? How important is it, right? And how do you use it as a tool?
Okay. That's a great question, because I think there are so many ways to answer that. I'm going to start with the tool first, because I think that definitely music is a fantastic tool, depending on the type of ride. Well, on all the rides, but it can be more of a tool on certain rides. And what I mean for that is, like, there are time drill-based rides, and there are rhythm rides.
Yes.
And rhythm rides being it goes to the music. So if the music speeds up, more than likely you're going to speed up. If it gets faster, more than likely you're going to go faster, or something's going to happen at the change of the beat, at the end of the phrase. And in that case, your music is really your tool, because you really have to think, what do I want the participants doing right now? Do I want them on a flat road? Do I want them on a hill? How can I use the music to simulate what I want them to do?
I love that word, simulate, too.
Yeah. That's because like if you're telling me to go up a steep hill and the music is going, super, super, super fast, it's kind of hard to get in that like boom, boom, that climb, rhythm. So, and then also for time-based drills, like sometimes I do a class that's just got a lot of timed drills in it. So the music to me doesn't necessarily have to correspond exactly to what I'm doing, although I like it to try to, but it has to be like good beat music driven that can keep the rider engaged so that they can feel through the timed based drill. Does that make sense? I don't know. Am I making sense? I hope your listeners are getting this.
No, music, that's clear that you're using the nuances of a song to drive whatever it is that you want the participant to do.
Right.
And
exactly.
I 1,000% agree that it has to be the right tempo, right? Or the beats per minute of the song, because each one will correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but you could hear a song in the car, at the mall, in the grocery store, probably not in an elevator, right? But you can hear a song and right away you would know that's a good climb song.
Yep.
That's a good endurance push. That's a good sprint song, right? Like,
yes, that jumps or whatever you want to call them. Yes. Yeah.
So it makes total sense. And I think one of the skill sets that, although I don't know, it may come pretty natural for us, but just knowing where what we could use a chorus for on a song, right? What is there enough time during what's the word I'm looking for? During the break of a song,
bridge.
A bridge. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Is there enough time during the bridge to add just a little bit of spice to it without overcomplicating the cues, right? Because we also want it, pretty simple. We don't want to say, all right, 30 seconds, then 20 seconds, then 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, then come up, then go down. Like, then it just becomes like
what am I doing?
Yeah. What is happening? So do you, I like to tell stories, and thank you for, it's clear again, just to reiterate that music is definitely a tool. Those hard driving beats might be better for a climb. Those, for me, I like to use maybe like a rock song for sprint segments, it's just, it's got a heavy beat and it goes fast. It just feels like you should go faster.
Yep.
And then EDM, probably more a climb song. I mean, we could talk about it forever.
Yeah.
But definitely music shapes what we do.
Absolutely.
No matter what.
Absolutely.
Anything else you would add to that music segment that you would think?
No, I think we kind of covered it. And I think you have to work with what you like too, or know your audience when you're picking songs too. So, but you can also give a great workout, even if somebody doesn't like the music, they can still come away with a great workout as long as you are talking about it like we're choreographing it. It's almost like a dance, like how we're going to do this certain moves to the music. So,
yeah. And to your point earlier, sometimes, it will be choreographed to the music. And sometimes I just want you to try to get to a mile before this song ends. I want a metric based challenge for you, as opposed to let's enjoy. And I used this illustration the other day in my class. Tell me if you think it makes sense or not.
Okay.
But I was doing more of a metric based class where it was setting goals, and it was less about the music. And I said, it's like this. You're sitting at a bar talking to a friend, and the DJ's playing really good music in the background, but you're in the conversation. The conversation is what
That's
counts,
great.
right? And
That's great.
so,
That's like perfect.
yeah, that's what I was explaining. I was like, now this is the conversation. We're focused on what I'm telling you,
I might
but
use
the
that.
DJ's doing a good job. The DJ's doing a good job in the background. You're kind of like looking
Yeah,
around. Yeah, I like the
I
environment
like
here.
this.
So anyway, that was kind of something that I used as an
That,
illustration.
I think that's perfect. That's like what to me like a timed-based drill workout is.
Yeah,
I love it. I
yeah.
might.
No, do it. So I like to tell stories. I think
Okay.
stories or use illustrations. Let's talk about illustrations that you use to help people understand what you want them to do, and or stories that you tell maybe during a break, maybe during a long push. Are there any go-to illustrations that you like to use? And are there any stories that you've used in the past that say, hey, this ride was all about this. I remember one time, blah, 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 whatever that is.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too I don't know. Okay, this is a tough question
Yeah.
because sometimes, honestly, Joe, I get up there and I teach, and I
Yeah.
just stuff comes out.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. That's fair.
And
Here, let me
what
tell you something that I say, and then maybe that, and I know
will
you've done
trigger
it.
something.
Yeah, it might trigger something. If not, I know it's how we're built, right? Um, there'll be times where I'll do classes that have to do with high cadence,
Okay.
and lighter resistance. So I'll say something like, all right, we're gonna practice some leg speed. So we're gonna be going 90, 100 RPMs, kind of fast in the saddle. And so I want you to think about, the difference between when you were learning to drive, right? You got out
Uh-huh.
onto the regular highway. It felt kind of fast, right? 65, maybe you were going. And we have what we call 470 here in
Okay.
Colorado, and it's the toll road where you can
Okay.
go 75, you can go even faster. And then I'll say, and remember the first time you went on the toll road, you were like, oh my God, like this is fast. But then it only took a little bit of time before you felt like, all right, this is good.
I can
I
do
know I'm
this.
going
Yeah.
faster, but I'm good. You acclimated to it. And so I'll say things like that kind of help, you know, the new member, especially, think that, man, I don't know if I could hang on to a higher cadence for this long. Kind of help them understand that way. Or the velocity of like a baseball, the difference between, you go from middle school pitching to high school pitching to college pitching, and it's just whistling past you. You got to get used to it.
Let's do it.
Right.
You're
So,
good with the metaphors.
yeah, I try to use that as much as I can. So is there anything like that you remember using, and or are there any stories that you use? And then we'll get into maybe stories that happen, as
Okay.
we discussed before the podcast, some stories that you heard and life change and things like that. But have you ever used a story, anything that you might
Let me
use?
think. Okay, so going back to kind of cueing what you were talking about, one of my ones I use is somewhat similar to yours, but I always say, okay, we're in a group of riders right now. You've got a bunch of riders around you, and
Yes.
you're kind of behind, and there's a group coming up, and your goal is to get around this group. So you're out in your
Love
race
it.
or on the road or whatnot, and once we get up, we're getting a little bit faster. We're getting up. We're finally behind them. But now you've got to come out and put on your passing gear because you've
Yes.
got to go faster than that group. And then finally we'll, come back in and you can kind of back it off a little bit.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? So
Oh, totally.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you give
So
them that
you're up behind.
visualization, yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So I'd use that one quite a bit. Like we've got to get into passing gear. We've got to get around this group of slow riders. We've come along. We've got to pull out. We've got to pass them. Then we can
yeah,
pull in and back off until we get to the next set of riders that are ahead of us to get in front.
love that,
Um,
love that.
so that's
Yeah,
one
and
of the visualizations I use. Yeah.
awesome, awesome. There
I,
is, there's one, and again, I love sharing these stories because it helps us, and I'm gonna
it
use
does.
your
Go for
4
it.
times, I'm gonna use your, like, we're gonna help each other here. This is part
See,
of it,
we're
right?
still learning. You asked if
We're
we had,
still learning.
reached the pinnacle, but I think we're still learning.
Totally, totally. So there's a story that I sometimes tell, and it was about the first time the group of my friends, the first one of us to get a car when we were all 16.
Okay.
My friend got, I believe it was a Volkswagen Beetle, whatever, if I remember right. Used car. It was like $300, and he's like, "Oh, let's go. Let's go. You could like see the ground because some of the floor was,
Love it.
rotted out. And the thing with this bike, or this bike, we're talking bikes,
About bikes,
right?
yeah.
Kelly, was that if he got over 50 miles an hour, it would overheat and we would have to pull over and wait a while. Right. So
Love it.
like the whole thing was like, don't go over 50, right? Because you overheat. And so I would tell that story and I'm saying, hey, we're going to control our output today.
Okay.
I want you to find the threshold, right? That top of a 5 out of 10. If you go any faster, you start to get to anaerobic. We don't want to pull over and wait for you to burn out. Like we
Right.
need to hang on to this for a little bit longer. So different things like that are kind of fun, illustrations to use. That's
I
one of
like
my
that. I like that story.
yeah, it's a ton of fun. Let's get to something that I didn't realize would be such a gift for this podcast, and that's really some of the stories that we both have had the privilege to hear. And what I mean by that is, as an instructor, whatever it is that if you're listening, you instruct, but specifically cycling, you're going to hear stories over time. You're going to hear somebody that came to your class for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they finally come up to you and they say, "Hey, I just got to thank you because
Mhm.
when I started, I wasn't in a good place." Or today, I just finished my first outdoor race and it was because of the training I have indoor. Like we've all heard the stories, right?
Yes.
Um, and I would love if you would share one or two of those with us, or three, however many you have. But
Okay.
tell me something like what is, because it's so meaningful, right, to us. Like it pushes us. It fuels us, if you will, right?
So the very first one that I can remember, and this was like my first big story, and it was after I just started teaching because I was still in Tennessee at the Parks and Rec Center that I was teaching at. And first of all, there's no judgment. I have grown a lot since then. Okay. So just be that as it may, everybody that's listening, and Joe, no judgment on me.
No judgment.
So I'm going to get a little vulnerable here, but I had just started teaching. So new instructors, this might be some good advice. Maybe you can learn from my somewhat mistake in this. But I had a lady come to class and she was on the heavier side. She was overweight and she would come to class. And I have to say, like the first couple of times, I'm like, oh, this is just not going to last. Like she's not going to make this. That was like mistake number one, thinking that. Not that I ever said anything to her, but in my head, I thought, oh, I don't know. Like this is going to be interesting.
Sure.
Well, I will have you know that woman came to my class every week. She didn't miss a class. She was there every week. And she never stood, which was understandable. And that was fine. Like we talked about that before. That stuff doesn't bother me, but she never stood. She just sat the whole time. And then I started noticing her come up off the saddle like a little bit here and there, here and there.
Okay.
And then she started getting better. I mean, this is over time. This isn't
Sure.
just like after a month or 2 months. And so finally, I would talk to her, but finally, I guess one day I just went over and I started, really talking with her. And she goes, Kelly, she goes, I just wanted to tell you how much this class has done for me. And she goes, I wasn't able to get off the saddle when I first started. And now I'm able to stand while we're riding. She said, my husband has hugged me and told me how much he can tell a difference, like in my composition, my size, that I've come down. And I, of course, told her, so I was so proud of her, but I felt bad also that I had made that horrible judgment in the beginning. And it taught me something to like never underestimate a person and never, look at someone and make a judgment in this industry because you don't know. And it's still touched to this day when she would tell me, that my husband hugged me and he could tell
Mm.
like I have lost weight by coming to this class.
Wow.
And that like really inspired me. It taught me, it humbled me a little. And to this day, I think about her, and that was more than double digit years ago, years
Yeah.
ago when I
Amazing.
first started teaching.
But it stuck with
And
you.
yeah, it stuck with me. And so now I never judge I always remember that, never judge anybody coming into the class, whether they're skinny, big, little, small, nothing. There's like
Sure.
no judgment. I am just happy that you are there and that you're willing to give it a try and hopefully stick it out with me and make it so that you become better, either physically, mentally, in any shape or form,
Yeah.
So it was, like I said, no judgment. I feel like horrible even admitting that I thought that, but
But
it
that's
taught
how
me
we
something.
grow.
I
Yeah.
learned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned from that.
No,
I still remember that to this day. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's certainly no judgment. I mean, I think if we're all honest, we've thought, different things that we weren't sure about, or maybe we judged somebody prematurely,
Yep.
all of the above. But we learn from that, right? And we understand that it's not always what it looks like, or it's not,
Right.
it could be way different than we ever realized. Or to your point, like, you just don't know what they're going through, right? You
Nope.
don't know
You
what a
don't.
person's going through. And, one of the things that I still work on, from my, perspective, and what I do is sometimes I fall in love with the class that I want to give, as far
Mhm.
as what I want them to accomplish, right?
Right. Right.
And whether it be like, let's try to get as far as we can in 4 minutes, and then let's try to beat that in the next 4 minutes, and try to beat it one more time in the third opportunity of 4 minutes, whatever that looks like.
Right. Right.
And I'll be so excited about the music, about the plan, and then I'll see somebody who just doesn't seem like they're into it, right?
Right.
And I tell you this because I had something kind of similar happen before, where I'm just like, I want you to do this, right? And look at your neighbor, and if they're not in, tell them you need to be in, and that,
Right. Right.
tell your neighbor, let's play along, just kind of really kind of maybe pushing a little bit too much. And then after class, another member came up to me, and they said, "Hey, did you see that gentleman back there?" And I'd be lying if I didn't see him like kind of zoned out and kind of not connected or whatever.
Right. Right.
Uh, she said he lost his son a couple months ago,
Oh, wow.
and he exercises because it just keeps him sane. He was telling us a little story, before class, and I just felt like, oh my God, I I
Yeah.
probably got a little bit too excited about about the class, and not realizing, what somebody's going through, right? And
That's
so that
true.
taught me, and that was not too long ago, Kelly. That was not
Right.
too long ago. That I'm talking a few months ago when that happened. Um, and again, it's like we've been saying, I guess, this whole time, where it's an ongoing learning process,
It
right?
is. It is.
We're trying to get better. We're trying to, what can we say that would help somebody feel what you want them to feel on the bike, but according to where they're at in their fitness journey, right? How can
That's
we
right.
help somebody who's seasoned, right? Who has been doing it a long time, feel like they're getting a great workout. It's
True.
like we have this multiple audience, right? We have a returner. I'm injured. I'm returning, or I
Uh-huh.
was away for the summer, or I just kind of fell off the wagon. Or you have your guest, your first time. I've never done this before. I'm deconditioned. I've heard horror stories. And then you have your, I'm here to get a good workout,
Yes.
like
Yes.
you have
Yes.
all these three. Like for me, I think, right, there's
Yep.
probably
That's
more than
about,
that.
yep. You nailed
But
you hit the nail on the head.
yeah, but generally that's who our audience is, right? And so our journey, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you, and supporting one another as we've been doing online, is to get better at serving those three
Yes.
demographics. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what would you say to kind of wrap things up? Um, what is your favorite part about teaching, and what would you tell somebody who aspires to teach? Like, what one point of advice? What's your favorite thing about teaching,
Okay.
and what would you say to somebody who aspires to be an instructor?
So my favorite thing about teaching, honestly, is seeing the growth, the return of people to class. And and this comes, I guess it could be attributed to both, like in real person or in real life or in real life, in real time,
Yeah.
in-person classes is what I'm trying to say. When you see those faces coming back and you get to know the people and you learn a little bit more about their stories and just and helping people get better. I love to hear, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but sometimes people come into our classes and they leave and you go, did they like it? Did they hate it?
Yeah.
Are they going to come back? Like, what are they going to do? So it's nice to when we finally do get some feedback, and I love to hear how it's helped people, and that just makes me feel good. Like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to be on this journey with you, to work out with you, to get healthier physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. Let's do it
Yes.
together. And I like people, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
And online, I think it's kind of the same thing. My favorite part is just I love it. I love it there. I love that, I'm reaching more people than just here at my local Y. In fact, I was so excited because I got a comment from someone from Norway. I was like,
Yes.
really? Someone from Norway is
Well,
watching
and
me
I
here?
should have said this at the very beginning, because I wanted to congratulate both of us, if you will, because we both just did our first live ride within the
Yes.
last couple of weeks, right?
Yes.
And to your point, like, I love hearing the stories. I love seeing the returning faces. But when it comes to online, there's a couple of ways that we feel that too. And if you're listening and you take our classes, the comments, like you
Yes.
telling us, hey, I've been here for a while. This is my third class, fourth class, fifth class. I've been following you for a year, whatever it is.
Right.
And you're telling us, what it's done for you. Like, that's the same thing, right? We're
That's what
hearing you.
keeps us
We're seeing.
going.
Yes, yes, it fuels us. And is there no better feeling, Kelly, than being live, right? And knowing that people from all over the place are
It's
like,
crazy.
Norway, right? You're like, what? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on right now, right? So congratulations, by the way, for
Thank you. Same to you. Like,
yeah,
we
thank
we
you.
both did it.
Yeah, and
We
it
took
actually,
that
and
giant
just
leap. We
so
did it.
everybody knows that we actually practiced
Yeah.
like a week before yours. We called
Yep.
each other up and we said, "Hey, can you listen to my sound? How is it looking? How is it sounding?" So thank you for helping me,
Oh, thank
get ready
you.
for that. That was fun. I love that we got a partner in that way. And finally, what would you say to somebody who's aspiring to do what you do, what we do?
I would say go for it. You're gonna love it. And just be open-minded, like, be willing to learn, take advice, learn from other instructors, take what you like, ditch what you don't,
Love it.
and just do it. Just keep going, keep at it. I know the first class is tough. I still, to this day, get nervous when I teach my first class of something. So that
Yes.
live class that we did, I was still
Woo!
just as nervous as,
Yes.
even though I've taught, how many classes have I taught in my
Right.
life? I can't
Right.
even count.
Hundreds. Hundreds.
But I still had that butterfly in my stomach, and your heart goes. And even today, like, when I go teach it, even if I sub a class at the Y and it's not my usual class, I still I still get nervous. It's so silly.
Yeah.
But I think this will make us good. I telling my daughter, like, she was really nervous about something, and I was like, a little nerves is good because that means you care. You
Yes.
care about what you're
Yes.
going to do. So, to all you inspiring instructors, get certified and just do it. Go and teach and find the way that you want to teach, and do it well and
Yes.
practice.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you
Thank
again,
you.
Kelly. I'm so excited. This was a great conversation, and we talk about this offline all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
the conversation could be endless for sure.
I know. I think you and I
Um,
could talk for hours.
yes, no, without question. But again, I'm honored. Thank you so much. I'm going to put links in the description below on how people could find
Perfect.
you.
Yes.
how they could
Join
follow
me.
you, take your classes, all of the above. And we are already in the works of doing a collaboration together.
Yes.
And so if you're listening to this, if it hasn't come out yet, it will come out soon. We're
Yes.
going to do a ride where we ride together. We're going to experiment with a couple of things that we've been talking about. I'll let it be a surprise for
Yes. Be surprised.
the riders. But we're definitely going to be doing a collab soon. So it's been great. It's been amazing, Kelly. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Yes.